Hello, everyone. This is Coach Tim Campsall, and I'm excited to have a fellow business owner with us today. Something unique about my guest is he has quadruplet boys who are 18. In his downtime, he enjoys fishing, golf, and working on cars, and he's most proud of his perseverance with his 16-year-old business. It is my pleasure to welcome Brad to the show today. Hi, Brad.
Hey there. Thanks for having me today, Tim.
Absolutely. Well, hey, let's start with having you introduce yourself. Tell us your full name and a little bit of your personal story, like where you were born and live and about your family.
So my name's Brad Murray. I'm from a small town called Covington, Indiana, out by the Illinois border. I grew up in a small town there. My dad was a factory worker. My mom was a school teacher in our little town, so she taught me as well, and just didn't grow up with any kind of entrepreneurial background. So I had a high school sweetheart who came up to Indianapolis to Butler University. Her name is Jen. And a year later, because I was a year behind her in school, I followed her to Indianapolis, and that's how I ended up at IUPUI downtown, which is now Purdue Indianapolis. And I got a Purdue degree in computer graphics technology. So I left college, and my first job was with a civil engineering company called Wolpert. It was a great job, great people that I worked for, but the economy had tanked in 2009, and that's how I started into entrepreneurship. I had four 18-month-old babies, and I was our only income, and I needed to figure out what we were going to do really quickly. So I was kind of forced into entrepreneurship and have figured it out over the last, 16 years or so.
Yeah, congratulations. So, was it painful having your mom as your teacher?
It was. She taught interpersonal communications. That class, all of us usually do in health class and in middle school.
Ah,
Got to do that for all of us. So that was
oh yeah.
kind of a scarring thing to go through, but a lot of things we laugh about now.
Wonderful. Well, hey, Brad, speaking of laughing, is there a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share with us?
Yeah, so I just have a tendency, and it's not necessarily one specific incident, but I have a tendency to say things that are sort of, they go sort of people think of me as a funny person, but it's never because it's intentional. And so I have this tendency to say things that are just a little bit out of place for wherever I'm at and get a big laugh that wasn't intentional. A lot of times people think I was being quick. So I don't know if kind of under the surface I'm quick, but it just doesn't come up here. But things come out on a regular basis that do that. So that's kind of what I'm known for. And unfortunately, there's about 40 stories like and it's not really even embarrassing anymore to me.
Oh, good.
I put my foot in my mouth. I don't tend to do it in business, so I don't know if I'm being a little more just strategic and careful consciously. But man, in my personal time, I'm very good at it.
I love it. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So, you told us a little bit about how the business came about. Maybe give us a little bit more of that story, and more importantly, at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Yeah, so when I got laid off in the fall of 2009, and I started interviewing immediately for other jobs that were really similar. I was running AutoCAD, a software
Hmm.
that makes engineering drawings. And so I went looking for that same job because that's what I knew how to do. I'd been doing it for 6 years and I'd learned it in college as well. But I interviewed for a job shortly after I was laid off. And there were 100 qualified applicants for that job. And I learned that after I didn't get it. One of my coworkers from Wolpert actually got that job. He and I had made it to the top three, and then he had gotten chosen over me. And he called me, and I congratulated him, and he said he was sorry, and we both needed jobs.
Yeah.
And but he's the one that told me, hey, there were 100 qualified
Wow.
applicants for this. And I looked at my wife and went, this might not be a good plan to go
Mm.
after each one of these jobs. So
Mm.
that's when at the time, we had four 18-month-old boys. And my wife had started a blog in WordPress. about our quadruplet boys and parenting them and all the things that we were doing. And she had quickly gained a really large crowd at the time. It was back in the mommy blog days. It was kind
Yeah.
of a big thing at that time. And she was getting as many as 70,000 unique visitors a month
Wow.
coming to the website. And so because we had this big crowd and I needed work to do, Jen kind of put all my skills out on her website, and I was immediately inundated with requests for work.
Oh, that's
Actually,
awesome.
people like my wife. She's a very likable person, and they knew our situation. They just wanted to help us out. And so I started saying yes to some website related projects that honestly I didn't know how to do. I taught some of it, but I just thought I can figure this out. I can do a Google search, I can figure things out. And so that's kind of how my business started. I got my first projects that way. And really for the first year, we burnt through savings and I didn't make anywhere near enough to support my family. But thanks to my wife, who watched our savings erode and just kept cheering me on, she really, I
Oh,
kind of kept doing it because I was losing confidence really quickly. I felt the pressure as humanly our provider to be that person. And so I would have given up much, much sooner, but she just kept saying, you can do this, you can do this.
mm.
So really grateful for that. And then by late fall of 2010, so it'd been about a year, I finally kind of started to get enough work that we were at least getting by. So, but that first year, I really wasn't sure that it was going to work out at all.
Yeah, that first year can be a little troubling, right?
Yeah,
In terms
it
of,
was very, very difficult. I would literally go to the mailbox because back then my clients mostly sent me checks.
mm.
And I would have bills due and literally go to the mailbox and hesitate to open it, hoping so much there's a check inside that. But I'll tell you, our family is very faith driven, and every time though we were provided for, we trusted that God would take care of us, and every time something was really due, we had just enough to take care of it, and so that's just kind of how our story went consistently. We never had a lot, but
Yeah,
we in
yeah.
that those beginning times, but we always had enough.
There's a Toby Mac song that the lyrics are something along the lines of never too early, but never too late, that God always shows up. And oftentimes I wish that he would come a little earlier than he does because it'd be nice to have that cushion, right?
One of my favorite passages is in Proverbs 30. There's a verse in there that says basically that as followers of his, if he gives us too much, then we'll decide we don't need him
Yeah.
anymore.
Yep.
But if he gives us too little, we might profane his name and steal and that sort of thing. And I feel like the Lord's kept us right in that range all the time of
Yeah.
providing just enough. But I remember going to one of the guys at our church on a Sunday. I was panicked because I'd lost my job. And this guy's name's Mark, but I went to him and I just told him, I was like, I'm our sole provider. What am I going to do? I remember using words like that. And he kind of raised his eyebrows and he said, who's your provider?
Nah.
And it was a good reminder, to kind
Yeah.
of ground me back in the truth. So,
Yeah. I tell folks that I prefer the intellectual learning more than the experiential learning.
oh, yeah.
So Brad, tell us more about the company. What's the name? What do you guys do? How do you help folks?
So, I actually started off with a business called Fortunate Design. That was my website development business. But right after I started off on my own, my now business partner, Wade Danforth, started Inspire Marketing.
Hmm.
So, we both went to the same church and we were friends. And he was more marketing strategy, like a fractional marketing
Okay.
person. And I was doing the tactic of websites. That's really what I knew how to do, and graphic design. And so Wade started bringing me when his clients needed the tactic of a website or designing a brochure or something like that. He
Yeah.
would bring that to me. And then when my clients needed more than just the tactic and they needed more strategy, I was bringing that to him. So we did that for a long time. It was actually from 2010, early 2010 when he started to 2017. We worked together all
Okay.
the time, but we were separate businesses.
Yeah.
And then I started another web design business called Whirl Sites for a little while. And then in 2017, Wade and I kind of looked at each other and went, and we'd been talking about it for a little while and went, we think it's time.
Yeah.
Let's just, and we really didn't know what the value of either of our businesses was, but we just went, let's just pretend that they're both worth the same amount. Let's merge our businesses and just be 50-50 in this. And so that's when we became Inspire Marketing. We changed names a few years later to Inspire Website Design for SEO purposes because we're trying to really focus on the tactic of websites, SEO, that sort of related thing. So that's the Inspire side of our story, and we've got another side of our business called Scale Squad as well. So.
Very cool. So overall then, obviously websites, but more importantly, how do you help folks? What are you doing to make a difference for your clients?
Yeah, essentially, we're helping our clients grow their businesses,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's just so many businesses don't know how to present themselves online in a way that even if somebody got it to your website,
Mm,
how are they going to know what to do? How are they going to really clearly know what you do? And how do we get conversion? So we do a lot in looking at their particular business, how their clients come to them, how they make their decisions, and then really focus on the unique conversion. And I say unique, there's a handful of ways to convert, but they really are unique from business to business.
yeah.
And then beyond that, once we make sure we've got that part right, then we got to get people to the website, right?
Right.
And there's a
Yeah.
lot of strategies involved in that. Obviously, SEO is one of those. And when I say SEO for us, it's local organic SEO.
Mm,
So we don't get involved in pay-per-click. We do have trusted partners that we refer those to. So we don't get into kind of that paid advertising side, and we don't get into social media a lot. We're really focused in on hosting the website, making things sure things are working right, and then helping them if they've got a local brick and mortar business, even if they're based out of their home. There, you got to be located somewhere.
yeah.
Uh, but then expanding that footprint when somebody does a search and they're looking for your products or services, but they don't know your name. I mean, it doesn't do any good. If somebody already knows your name, they're going to find you anyway,
Yeah.
right? You're searching for a plumber, for example, in your hometown. If they just search plumber, who shows up first? If it's not you, we can make you
Mm,
through a series of things show up first.
very cool. Awesome. Brad, share a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, even maybe when you didn't think that you could, and the impact that person had.
Yeah, so I have to think back to a guy. So I've been in a networking group called BNI for the whole time I've been in business.
Mm.
And early on, there was a guy that had an HVAC company that was in our BNI group. And he met with me for a one-to-one after a meeting because he said he needed help with the website. It was early on in his business. And so he asked me for a quote on it, and I quoted him $350 for a website. And he looked at me kind of funny and he said, what is your business model? What's your business plan? How many of those would you need to do in a month to make a living? And I just deer in the headlights. I was like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
All I knew is, I think I can sell a website for $350. He was like, well, let's figure it out. So he pulled out a piece of paper and he said, how much do you need to make to support your family? So we wrote that down. And he was like, how many websites do you think you could do in a month if you could sell as many as you wanted to? And I think at the time I said maybe 4 or 5, that I could probably get done.
Yeah.
And so he divided what I needed per month by the number of websites. And he said, you need to charge, I think it was $3,500 for a website.
Wow.
I looked at him and he was like, now I don't mean for mine. I'm not going to
Right.
the advice after my project. Um, but he just said on the next website, I want you to quote it $3,500. And I said, Chris, I'm never going to succeed. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to sell a website for that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end up failing. And he looked down at the piece of paper and he looked up at me and he said, Brad, you're already failing. It's already worse. He said, this is a really simple equation. I know it may be painful to hear,
Yeah.
but you either sell a website for $3,500, and if you can't, there's your answer. Go get a job because you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
It was
Wow.
it was a hard thing to hear,
Yeah.
but it made total sense, right? All that is a simple business plan.
Yeah.
Again, my mom was a teacher. My dad was a factory worker. I didn't even know what a
Sure.
profit and loss statement was, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that was probably the most valuable piece of advice I got early on. And I did the very next website. I quoted $3,500 and the person snapped it up didn't even ask me questions, and I about fell out of my chair.
Right? You're like, oh my goodness, I've been missing a zero for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredible.
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah, one of the things my coach said to me in my first year is, "Hey Tim, when you believe you're worth, whatever amount, in this case 3,500, then people will start showing up who are ready to pay 3,500. But if you don't believe it, then it's not going to happen."
Yeah, huge part of it. You got to believe you have that kind of value, and I didn't know that I did yet.
Yeah.
I had to learn that.
That's a great story. Thanks for sharing. Hey, we know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So tell us about one of your biggest challenges throughout the years and someone who came alongside you and helped you through it.
Yeah, so I would say that that person is my business partner, Wade.
Yeah.
I have a tendency, I'm sort of when it comes to website design, most people in our industry are either creative and artistic. So they tend to be the graphic designer that struggles with the code and getting it all to work right. Or they're more the coding programming type. And they're more the engineer type,
Mm,
and they don't do the creative well. And so you'll run into a lot of website developers that are single entrepreneurs that I would say I've seen very few that can be successful in that.
mm,
And so one of my struggles was I was sort of in the middle, which kind of felt like I wasn't good at either one of them.
mm.
But what I recognized pretty quickly with Wade was as a creative, I'm forgetful. I don't I don't have things. I don't. I'm not organized. I don't like to finish things. I love to start things. I don't
Yeah.
like to finish things. And so Wade is the opposite of me, which makes us a great partnership.
Yeah.
And his wife kind of came along with it as well. So she was our next employee very quickly. And they're both super organized people and they hold me accountable.
Mm,
Um, and they started getting me organized. They're like, Brad, you're going to forget. You got to do this. You got to do that. So it was on paper and now it's gone to an app and we got all kinds of ways that we keep things structured. But I've found I really do care and I really do want to finish it,
yeah.
but my own natural tendencies don't push me towards that. And
Yeah.
so I need those other people in my life, and Wade and Jessica have just been. I mean, I wouldn't have succeeded without them.
That's awesome.
I needed
Yeah.
that accountability.
That's great. It reminds me, we use DISC assessments to with our clients, and the difference between a high I who is the ideator and the continual starter of concepts and projects versus so they can take off the plane, but they can't land it because they don't have the high detail orientation and the timeline and the dot the I's, cross the T's. So yeah.
Now, once I'm in the air, I just want to strap on a parachute and jump out.
That's awesome. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, Brad, and
Okay.
ask you to pick three people in your business journey who you're most grateful for them being there to help with your business's growth. So who are those three and how'd they help you?
Well, I'd have to start with my wife. She has just been, while raising first quadruplets, and then we had another boy, Hudson, 9 years later. So she's had a lot on her hands, but she's just been a constant encourager to me, and she's believed in me. And in this journey where you have clients telling you you're doing a terrible job sometimes, uh, you have projects that genuinely you fail,
Mhm.
and really do everybody's got disaster stories. I've actually got a really good disaster story, but from early on, I don't make those kind of mistakes like I did. But so my wife coming alongside me and supporting me has been huge. And then actually my father-in-law, who I actually lost a few years ago, it's been a huge loss for me, but he was a guy that I would go, hey, this is going on in my business. And he had never run a business before, so he didn't have any entrepreneurial help for me. But he was somebody that would support me and pray for me and check in constantly. And there were so many times that I would go, hey, I'm really worried about this. And being who I am and forgetful as I am, he would come back a week later and say, hey, how's that going? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to. So he was sort of a father figure to me, with his own unique gifts, and just was really, really consistent in that way. So those are two people that are personal. And then I had a third person who is actually a coach. His name's Jack Kleemeyer, and he's just been a friend. He's the one that invited me to the BNI group years ago, and he's just had a lot of tangible advice
Mm,
over the years of how to run a business. And I would say, really, in general, my BNI group, um, they've provided referrals, which is what it's designed to do. But I've gotten to interface with, probably with all the people that have rotated in and out of my chapter over the years, with probably 70 business owners
right.
that have been
Yeah.
in my group, who are at all various stages of their journey as entrepreneurs. But I've gotten a huge education from all of those people. So I just think it's really important that you can get isolated as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Really important you surround yourself with a variety of people that are in kind of in the struggle with you. And some of them are ahead of you on the road, and other people are behind you, so you can kind of support them. But to be rubbing shoulders with other people who are struggling and can, hey, this is what I did to overcome that, is a huge deal. So Jack played a major role in that, and then others from my BNI group as well.
Awesome. You mentioned it can be a little isolating and to build on that lonely at the top, and then we can start telling ourselves that we're the only ones that are having this struggle, and right, and we're failing and we're not capable, and then we talk to other people and hear that they have this similar struggles or they've gotten through it. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm not alone. This is just part of the business owner journey, right?
Absolutely.
So, what's been your biggest learning as a business owner?
I think the biggest thing for me has been um, just learning that business in general, it really doesn't matter what you do. There's some key components in business that you just have to learn, from the finance piece of it to sales and follow up, to just being consistent, having processes. And the thing that I struggle with most early in business was working on the business instead of just in the business all the time. And that's something that we have quarterly goals now, and we are kind of putting benchmarks in every week. Are we on target to reach those goals? And if we're off, who on the team can help, and who can hold accountable and that sort of thing. So I think just in general, accountability is such a huge piece of success in business. And the reality is, even if it is just you and your business, as it was for me for a while, you almost no one can do this alone.
Mm,
It's a journey that requires a lot of input. And
yeah.
so if you're just bound and determined to do it yourself and really not involve anybody else, I think it's going to be pretty rare that somebody like that's going to succeed.
Also, there's a big risk in that, right? Like, God forbid if something happens to the solopreneur and they're the sole provider and they can't go to work for 3 or 6 months, right? There's a significant risk of that. So yeah,
The business just died, most likely,
yeah, right.
even just with a short-term issue that you might have.
Yeah. So what piece of advice would you have for or guidance for business owners who are feeling stuck or discouraged in their business?
Persevere. Uh,
Mm.
there have been so many times, at least once a year, I've said, I think I'm done. I
Mm,
don't think I can do this anymore. And for whatever reason, whether I just decided, hey, I can keep going, whether the Lord Himself intervened and provided encouragement through a sale or something good happening, don't make quick decisions
mm,
about significant things with your business. Obviously, at some point, sometimes decisions have to be made that are difficult to shut things down or whatever. But I am so glad I didn't quit in the many, many times that we've hit hardship. And, I can remember months I didn't get paid at all. And I
mhm.
just went, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But then, sticking with it, kind of putting those thoughts aside, receiving encouragement, keep going, and then there's a breakthrough. And I go, man, if I had quit right there, that would have never happened.
Yes.
Perseverance for an entrepreneur is the only way to succeed because you're gonna fail a lot on the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, and the journey's not linear.
No.
My mindset coach shares a story about how do you climb a mountain, right? You can't go straight up, right? You got to zigzag back and forth. So, these things that are happening in our journey are just part of the progress and the path to the top of the mountain. And then I read this book called Peaks and Valleys, and it talks about when you're at the peak of the first mountain, you look over and you want to get to the next mountain peak. The only way to get there is to go down. Right. And so when we're in that valley, right, that's oftentimes when we feel those feelings you just shared, right? Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I should give up. Maybe I should go get a job. But really, the book talks about, right, the valley is all about reflecting and recharging and preparing for the next climb.
Well, and I would warn people too that that's not going to go away no matter how successful you get. And I'm not saying I haven't arrived, but I mean, my main role in what I'm doing right now is sales. And I was 3 months in a row this spring. I had had a really good run where I was hitting my goal every month or exceeding it. And then we went 3 straight months that I didn't make my goal. And I felt like I was doing all the things, all the activities that I was
Yeah.
supposed to be doing. Um, and we're getting close to the end of a quarter here and going, I'm not going to make it. I made up inside of 1 week. I made up for the entire spring.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome, Brad.
And that's happened so many times where it seems like all is lost and we're not going to make our
Yeah.
goals. It's just feast or famine. That's just how it works a lot.
As you think about the next 1 to 2 years, what's an area that you feel stuck in, that you need to sort out in order to achieve your long-term goals?
Yeah, so for us, we're in technology, and there is a revolution going on right now
Mm,
in our area of the economy. And so it feels like a big wall to climb right now. But we know essentially we need to reinvent ourselves right now. What our clients are getting really isn't changing a lot. The output is
right.
all those same old goals, but how you get there and how you produce it, and really what's going to be expected in my business there's going to be a lot of pieces of AI. So when this first came out, when ChatGPT first got released for public use, I would disdained it. I just went, this is I even went so far as to go, I think this might be evil, you know. Of course, every technology can be used for evil, but what I've discovered over time is I can actually offer my clients more. And right
Mhm.
now, it doesn't replace any human beings,
Right.
but I can provide more value to my clients if I use tools that speed me up.
Right. Yeah.
So now I can spend that same amount of time I would have spent before doing some other things that allow me that only humans can do, and I think only humans will ever be able to do. And that's that innovative thought and thinking about, what's instead of spending all that time coming up with that graphic that now Jim and I can spit out. So now I can put that in and move on and spend more time on it. And so we're looking at launching kind of the 2.0 of our website process. So
Okay.
how internally do we produce the great results that we always do? And I think the entire process has got to be redone from
Yeah.
top to bottom. That's intimidating. And so that's kind of where we're at for the next phase.
Yeah, wonderful. Last question, Brad. Jim Rohn said that we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So as you think about that quote, what advice would you have for business owners who are feeling overwhelmed and trying to do it on their own?
It seems like, at least from my experience, that the naysayers and the um, people who have failed, I guess, are the ones that will gravitate to you and get your attention often. And I would just make sure that you're surrounding yourself. Find something, a networking group you can be a part of, or some sort of an association or something, but go find people who have succeeded in something similar to what you're after and make sure you're spending time with them because you don't learn how to lose weight from overweight people. You don't go to homeless people for financial advice, and you don't spend time around failed business owners to move forward. That doesn't mean you have to unfriend
Sure.
all your failed business owners because I've had 3 failed businesses of my own along the way. So it's not necessarily that, but you must surround yourself with an equivalent part of people that are going to encourage you. Because if you spend time around people that are telling you that it's probably not going to happen, it's
Sure.
not.
Yeah. And you mentioned BNI. There's chamber events that happen. There's all other networking events. I've never had somebody that I've asked to share their story, right? And give me some wisdom, say no to a, hey, would you like to get together for coffee? And I've got I'd like to pick your brain, right? It seems
Absolutely.
like most successful business owners are willing to pay it forward and right and pass on their wisdom and take the time to meet with somebody who's asked.
Yeah, because we've all had somebody do that for us.
Right.
That, I can remember, 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, I was having trouble with sales and trying to figure out how to kind of get over the hump. And I had a guy that was a very successful corporate business guy that agreed to meet with me. I was kind of surprised he'd take the time. He ended up inviting me to his house for breakfast,
Oh,
and he made
wow.
breakfast in his kitchen in front of me. And I was like, is this guy for real? In 1 hour, he shared information with me and he was very bold with me, of going, you need to stop doing that. That's dumb. Don't do that anymore. I mean, literally, real bold like that. But he changed the course of where I was going.
Wow.
And there are a lot of guys that are willing to do that, guys and gals that be totally willing to do that. I think a lot of times we're afraid to ask.
Yep.
So don't be afraid to ask, that most people will step out and take the time with you.
Great advice. Thanks for sharing. Brad, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people who have helped you along in your journey. If they were all here on the show today, what would you want to say to them?
Well, I'm so grateful for all the people that God has brought into my life and surrounded me with. He's helped me to overcome a lot, but it's really, I feel like they're the ones that have made me succeed here, because on my own, I know I would have quit. And so I'm just so grateful to my wife and to friends like Jack and my business partner Wade and his wife Jessica for their patience with my failure, because you have people in business with you, they watch you fail. You have to go and apologize to them, like, "Hey, I messed this up, and we lost a client over it."
Mm.
And they all had patience with me, and yeah, so I'm super grateful to all of them. I feel like they've brought me here. I've not led the way even.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Brad, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Always happy to share.
Thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show. Please help spread this movement by liking and subscribing to our show and following us on Facebook and LinkedIn. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Please pay it forward and be sure to tune in next time to the Self-Made is a Myth podcast.